everybody, welcome back. Jiu-Jitsu 2000 here today. I'm coming at you with an interesting video for you. Today I want to talk about Alone, I want to talk about season 2, and I would like to talk about episode 11. Okay, we're almost to the end of the show. Now, one thing I want to mention before I get started talking about my notes here is if you have not seen that episode of Alone, please turn this video off because it will contain a lot of spoilers and I don't want to ruin your experience on the show. So let's talk about it. Again, we're on episode 12. We're on day number 57. Think about that for a minute. 57 days. That's longer than last season. We have 3 people left. We're going to start off about 1 o'clock in the afternoon with David. He found, and I'm going to be reading my notes here, he found a nail and decided to make a shank to help remove the limpets off the rocks. Limpets, and then there was a annotation on the screen that the producers put in there. It says limpets attached to surfaces with a force equal to 75 pounds per square inch. That's crazy. So he had this nail and he was pulling them off. He decided to go fishing with a hook and line, and he says he's getting better at fishing. He's getting better at finding where they are, and he's getting a lot more patient, he said. And then he catches this huge fish, a rock bass, and I was like, yes! And there's another annotation on the screen that says it was actually a female kelp greenling. So I guess that was the actual type of fish. Now, there was a shot on the show that kept showing him over and over and over. And he says, you know, he's got this big old fish, and it was a real cool shot of him holding the fish, and he's happy. And he says, yeah, or something like that. That's the fish that he caught. That's the show. That's the section of video that they kept showing over and over and over. Now, he used white limpets as bait because they contrast. The color, the white color, you know, contrasted against the water. So he felt that that might have been part of the reason why he was successful fishing, I believe, with limpets. And then he caught another fish. And then he was kind of on the rocks and stuff, and there was a thought that went through my mind that, and I think he said this in the show, that if he had one misplaced step, that is all it would take to get him out of there. You know, in other words, one misplaced step could end the whole journey, and I completely agree. When you're out there like that, I would suggest, or I would think that, yeah, something like that falling in the water or something like that could definitely be detrimental. So then he says that this is the most amount of meat in the pot that he's had since he's been there. Did you hear that? This is the most amount of meat he's had in the pot in the 57 days that he's been there. And I noticed the video showed like a shot of a wooden spoon that he had made. And I liked that wooden spoon. I thought it was really nice. Let's move forward. 3:23 in the afternoon. We're talking about Larry. It was raining. And he says he loves the sound of the rain hitting the tarp. Now, we just got some rain. And I can concur with him. That's an amazing sound. I do too. I like that sound. He said that he's sick of the ocean sound. And I like the description that he used of what the ocean sounds like or means to him, that sound. And he says, it's like an obnoxious person. Hey, I'm here, you know. It's kind of funny the way he described that. Now he goes and checks his Paiute deadfall, and it's down. No mouse. And then there's an annotation that comes on the screen that says mice will avoid traps if they smell dead mice on them. And Larry says himself that he believes that they've learned and they aren't coming back, and he's very hungry. So he decides to go check his nets. There's no fish. And he's he's really been trying. Now, and then there's another annotation that comes in. It says, as winter sets in, the water becomes cooler and fish stay closer to the ocean floor where it's warmer. And then Larry says that his gill net only caught 2 fish since he's been there. Now again, folks, 57 days they've been there, and he's only caught a few fish, 2 or 3 fish, Larry says. And then he was talking about how him and his son had this conversation before he went on the show, and his son recommended that he doesn't take a gill net. And Larry said, everybody swears by them. He tells his son that. Everybody swears by those gill nets. So he brought one. So, according to Larry's thing here, him and his son went back and forth, and they were talking about it, and Larry thought that his son didn't know what he was talking about. And he admitted, I should have listened to him. I think that's cool of Larry to own that, you know, take ownership of that. I thought that was cool. So, resources are really starting to thin out now, and he decides that he's going to stop fishing. Why? Because he doesn't want to keep wasting periwinkles. He's getting these periwinkles and he's using them as bait, and the fish are taking them. And so that could have been a resource that he could have been using to eat for himself, for his own survival. So he decides, well, why would I give these to the fish? I'll eat them. That's a very strategic thought. That's a very strategic plan. And I have to say that I agree with him on that one. So now he can eat them, which equals guaranteed food versus gambling for food. So if he eats them, he's guaranteed that meal, that periwinkle, which ain't much, versus gambling with that periwinkle, taking a chance that you might win something or not. So I have to say, again, I agree with him. So he's been eating about 2 cups of periwinkles a day, he says. And from what it said, I think on the screen, that was about 360 calories or so in a day. That's not bad, but if you're busy, that's terrible. So 360 calories a day. And then he says there's no hope in getting any more food, just no hope. And then this question went through my mind, does Larry have faith? Because it seemed like he lost all hope. So again, I was thinking, does he have faith? So we're still on day 57, about 4:30 in the afternoon. We're talking about Jose. He sees a sea otter, and he talks about how beautiful the place is out there and how he'd like to come back and visit with his family sometime with a full belly full of food. And I agree with him. You know, it's a beautiful place, but it's not beautiful when you're alone suffering. I mean, I could only imagine. So I agree with him on that. So he goes to check his net, and he's got a fish. In fact, there was 2 of them in there, a red Irish lordfish. And then there's an annotation on the screen that says they can change colors to blend in with their surroundings, these fish. I've never seen them before. I don't know what they're like. Then I noticed that it was raining, and he says that this is the worst shape that he's ever been in his life. He says he referred to himself as a walking bone rack. A walking bone rack. That's crazy. He's hanging on for Shauna, his wife, right? And I also noticed that Jose has a nice wooden spoon. There was a shot there and I saw it. So he's talking about how he wants to give his wife a better life than she has right now. And then he elaborates a little more and he says, she's been supporting me since he was not allowed to work in Canada yet. And this is his one chance to support her, and that's why he's there on the show. I commend him for that. I think it's pretty cool. Let's move forward to day 58. Still 3 people left. We're talking about Larry, about roughly 8 o'clock in the morning. And he's talking about every night he's had dreams about food, constantly thinking about all the restaurants and all the food. And if I'm not mistaken, I remember one of the contestants on last year's show saying the same thing. about all food, comfort food and all that. It might have even been in this series, in this season, earlier on in one of my commentaries on this season. I can't remember if it was last season or this season, but in either case, I remember someone else saying that there's food everywhere. Comfort food, you can get entertainment food, you can get, you know, and so things are getting worse. Larry's in a funk. He's thinking about tapping out every morning, he said. 58 days, folks. Let's remember that, okay? It's not that he's a wimp or anything like that. It's 58 days of starvation will kick your ass. I would be thinking about tapping out too. It's getting worse day by day. And he says he's never been this food deprived. He's never been this low on food ever in his life. And then the annotation comes on the screen and it says, starvation can lead to convulsions and hallucinations. Now, I noticed that Larry was splitting some wood. And it looked like for a split second, in my opinion, that he was getting a little bit careless with his axe. And I had flashbacks of Mary Kate, and I was like, oh man, please don't let this happen to Larry. You know, when you're out of calories and you're still trying to do these tasks, and your motor function skills aren't your what do they call that, motor reflexes or whatever, they're not up to par because you're so starved of food. I was just hoping that he does not injure himself, which he didn't, so I was so happy about that. So then it shows a shot of him splitting some wood, and he's yelling, and he says, I'm so close to tap day. I can't do it no more. This is all I can handle. He's almost at his breaking end, you know, Larry is. Now let's move forward. 10 o'clock in the morning, David, he starts off, he says it's a beautiful day. He's decided that he's going to go fishing. He's caught a fish, and he almost fell in. Physically, he can hold himself, he said, for a long period of time, but emotionally, it's getting tough, he said. He talks about, now listen to this next section that I'm about to talk about. David talks about the hierarchy of human needs. And this is very wise, what I'm about to share with you. And it's not coming from me, it's coming from David that I caught on, and I'm sharing it with you now. And he talks about, if you don't have air, you're not going to think about water. And if you don't have water, you're not going to think about food. And if you don't have food, then you start, or should I say, if you have food, then you start missing your kids. You start thinking about the fact that you're alone. That is so smart. If you guys didn't see that on the show with David, please go look at that and listen closely to what he says. That's so smart, so wise, so wise. This is an amazing, you know, he's such a smart dude. And he wants a hug. He wants to talk to his kids. He misses them. And he can't have that out there. So he seems to be, in some ways, you know, putting those things on the back burner. Still on day 58. We still have 3 people left. We're talking about Larry again. It's about 2:20 in the afternoon. And and this is smart too, what Larry says. He says it's like living on a razor's edge out there. He says whether you succeed or fail, and he's not talking about life or death, he's talking about tapping or not tapping. Death by 1,000 cuts, he says. Lack of calories, rain, weather, rough tides, drift, the wrecking your nets, driftwood coming in, wrecking your nets, fish not biting, mouse chewing up your pack, hunger, these things that constantly push at you until you don't have anything left. He says he's almost to that point. He says he's at that point, actually. His will has been broken. He's over it, he says. And he doesn't know how many are left, how many people are left. And that would be hard right there. Because you're out there in this situation and you don't know if there's 10 people left, you know, 9 more plus you, or if there's one other person there. You have no idea how far along you are on this journey. That would be hard. Gosh, I can't think about that. It's like, oh my gosh. He says giving up sucks. He can't remember ever giving up on anything in his life. He said it's a sucky feeling. He doesn't want to let his family down, and he feels like quitting, he would be doing that. I don't think that. Larry, I don't think that. But to him, he does. He thinks that quitting will be letting his family down. He didn't come out here for the money, he says. He came out here to test himself, to test his skills. And that, honestly, that would be the same reason why I would go. The money's a prize, too. But, man, it's kind of like the martial arts. In my opinion, if a guy signs up for martial arts and all he's looking at is the black belt, and that's his journey, that's his destination, that's what he wants to find, that's what he's there for. If the black belt is his destination, he's never going to achieve it. The journey of the martial arts should be his destination, not the black belt. And if you relate that to the show, the money would be the black belt. So if they're there to get the money, they're never going to find it. They have to be there to enjoy the journey. That's just my opinion. Being out there, suffering in that situation is what they should be there for, not the money. Now, he says he's came here to test himself, and he knows that his wife will be disappointed in him if he quits. And it's just eating him up inside. It really is. It's just killing him. Then he starts talking about if he wins, he could sell the house and get out from underneath this mortgage. And he had high expectations of himself winning the show. And I'm kind of afraid, you know, in the sense that I wonder if he took this show too lightly, thinking, you know, I'm just going to go over there and win the whole damn thing, and wasn't humble. Because I think if you don't have humbleness in yourself, the world will put humbleness upon you. I don't know. I don't know Larry. All I know is what I see on the show. So I have these questions about it, you know. So then he takes this plastic paint bucket, this little 5-gallon bucket, to go get some wood, and he's breaking these twigs and putting them in the bucket, and he has a meltdown. Please, God, help me. Make it in soon. Make it rain fish or something, man. And the way he talks to God, and I'm not here to judge Larry, but in the way he talks to God, it's almost like I wonder what his faith is like. I'm just going to say it that way. Now let's move forward. 4 o'clock, Jose, he was thinking about going to kayak for fish, but the weather was bad. Going back and forth, rain, wind, sun. So he hasn't been kayaking. And he says that the bush has been providing well for him so far. He checks the gill net, and he realizes that the anchor came up and the gill net was kind of messed up. But the tide's too high for him to fix it right now to re-anchor it, so he needs to come back later. So he's trying to think about finding a way to reset his gill net from the kayak. Let's move forward. Day 59. 3 people left. 7:44 in the morning or so. Talking about David. Now this is kind of interesting. He had a dream that there was kids from a tribe teaching him how to fish with spears. Pretty cool. So he's learning how important human social interaction is. And there's an annotation that comes on the screen that says extended periods of isolation can cause depression and increase a person's likelihood of death by 26%. He said that he's never been away from his kids for more than a week, and the isolation is really starting to get to him. Now if you think about that thing, that annotation right there, again, I'll read it. Extended periods of isolation can cause depression and also increase a person's likelihood of death by 26%. If you saw my video on the rule of threes, that was the last one that I was kind of talking about that a lot of people disagree with me on. You know, 3 months without hope, 3 months without some sort of target that you're going after. Now let's move forward. We're still on day 59. Still have 3 people left. We're talking about Larry again. It's about 1 o'clock. What a beautiful day. Thank you, Lord. He starts off. So he's positive again. So he's had his meltdown. He's over the meltdown. He's back, right? This experience has shown him that he's lucky and fortunate to have what he has, the life that he has, things of that nature. And he says he needs to be more positive. I agree with him 100%. You know, it's hard for a person, I think, to go put every bit of your being out there. You know, for the people to watch the show and scrutinize you and all this. So I give Larry a lot of credit. It's not easy to put yourself out there, your whole, everything about your life and all this information about yourself, and let people just pick at it. So I give Larry a bunch of credit. I really do. And he said he was thinking on, or planning on, burning all of his firewood and eating all of his food. Could that be because he wanted to quit? I don't know. I don't know what he meant by that. He said he can quit or give it his all. So he decides that he's going to give it his all. He's re-energized. Larry's ready to go again. Let's move forward. 3:23 in the afternoon. Jose. The tide is not cooperating. He's going to go set the nets, the gill nets, with his kayak. Now, he decided to use a rock as an anchor with a piece of line and a float. And my initial thought was, be careful, man. Be careful. The water temperature, there was an annotation that came on the screen, and it said the water temperature was 47 degrees. Folks, if you fall in that water, it's hypothermic. So the video showed another couple angles of his kayak. He's out there on the water. It showed a cool glimpse of his kayak. It's amazing. Cool looking kayak. So he's out there setting the net, and he's like pulling on this thing, and you can see the kayak like leaning like all crazy. And I'm thinking, oh man, that looks so sketchy. What happens? The kayak rolls over, tips over to his left, you know, and now Jose's in the water. I don't think the water was that deep though, because the shot earlier that showed him out in the kayak, it didn't look like it was a deep part of water. It doesn't really matter though, because he's in 47 degree water. And then the show kind of ends right there. And I was like, oh my God. You know, last episode, they kind of left us hanging with Jose, and now they're doing it again. Could this be what takes Jose off the show? I don't know. We'll find out in the next episode, because the next episode is going to be the final one. So folks, I want to say thank you for watching the video today. Please feel free to leave your comments down below. Like this video, share this video, and if you like the content that you see on my channel, please subscribe. And let's give this cast of this show, let's give them all the respect in the world, folks, because once again, they're out there putting their life on the line, their livelihood, their starvation, and all these things that they're going through. They're doing that for our entertainment. We need to respect them for that. We need to honor them for that. We don't need to be too harsh on them for that. We'll talk at you later. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.